Hello guys and welcome to my new video. So today I decided to have a look at Ferals versus balanced druids in terms of fun, in terms of which spec is stronger for certain scenarios, which spec is stronger for raids for a Mythic Plus, which spec is stronger for Mythic Plus when there is Fortified week, when there is Tyrannical week, and things like that. So I made a video like this before, but I wanted to cover more in-depth. I want to have a more in-depth look into each of the spec. I wanted to provide more information in terms of patch 7.35, how both of these specs are doing. And because I started playing Feral way more, I want to provide my personal opinion about which spec I feel is more fun. And the more fun part is going to be completely personal. I don't expect everyone to agree with my opinions, which is more fun. But in terms of which spec is stronger, I'll be basing my opinion based on multiple heroic, Mythic logs, Mythic Plus experiences, and basically how the spec plays out. So that's going to be more scientific, but of course the fun aspect is going to be more personal. So first of all, let's look at the DPS for Taurus. Balanced druids have been a very strong range spec for a long time. Balanced druids have been very strong at multi-dotting, have been very strong at AoE with Starfall, and Tier 21 provided a lot more emphasis on dots, on Moonfire. Moonfire at one point in this expansion, at one point in Legion, Moonfire was considered to be your filler spell, so you would just spam Moonfire. Now Blizzard has fixed that. Blizzard has changed, nerfed the AoE, increased the single target a little bit with the recent changes, which kind of brought back Soul of Wrath into, you know, your filler rotation, or Lunar Strike into your filler rotation. So it made it a bit more like, you know, appropriate rotation, if that's one way of putting it. But either way, balanced druids are extremely strong on Taurus. Their AoE is really strong for half of the Taurus raid. There is a lot of AoE in Taurus, and the dots Starfall was really strong. Now, but if you look at the single target, balanced druids right now, if you look at the logs for heroic mythic, balanced druids are one of the weakest single target specs in the game. Like somewhere along with shadow priests, maybe a little bit to elemental shamans, things like fire mages. There's somewhere along the bottom of the single target meters, and a lot of that is due to that, like tier 21 being an AoE tier. Balanced druids were never really that strong at single target, but on Taurus they've really fallen down. So a lot of the Boomkin guys and girls have opted in to have like a Feral spec for single target, but they enjoy playing Boomkin, but they'll have Feral for single target if they're really pushing for really mythic progress. But if you don't really care about mythic progress, you'll be just playing Boomkin anyways. But Feral right now in overall DPS is the third best spec in Taurus, because Feral single target is somewhere between mid to top, somewhere between there. Like, it's quite good single target. It's really good AoE in terms of burst AoE, in terms of sustained AoE, because your rotation will change if you know that the ads are going to live for longer. If they're going to live longer, you're going to apply bleeds. If they're not going to live long, you're just going to, you know, brutal slash trash and just, like, you know, GG. So Feral druids have an option of doing burst AoE or sustained AoE. For balanced druids, it's a bit more of just applying dots and applying Starfall, and just, you know, seeing how much damage is gonna be. Feral druids, on the other hand, have an option of choosing to go crazy burst because the ads are gonna live 10 seconds, or applying bleeds. So there is a lot more control for Feral druids, if you know what I mean. There's more control on whether you want to go hardcore burst. But first of all, let's look at balanced druids in terms of legendaries, in terms of talents and things like that. Both Feral and balanced druids have different legendaries for single target and AoE. That applies to a lot of DPS classes out there, so you should have different gear sets for fights that are completely single target or fights that contain some ads. And balanced druids are a bit more complex in terms of the legendaries that they might choose, because first of all, for single target it's going to be kind of always the same. On its intuition, which is the legendary bracers, and impeccable fell essence ring, which is the legendary ring, is widely regarded as the best single target legendary combo out there. Nearly like 90, nearly every mythic druid will be using that for pure single target fights. In terms of AoE, a lot of different things changes. There's like, You'll be using different legendaries based on whether there's going to be 2 or 3 mobs available. If those 2 or 3 mobs live long, I'll be using this kind of legendary. If there's like 5 mobs that are short-lived, I'll be using different legendary combo. So you have things like Lady in the Child. You have things like Radiant Moonlight, which is the Moon Cape, which become a really, really good legendary in 7.32, 7.35. It kind of came up as one of the top legendaries. Then you have like Honest Intuition. It's great for single target and AoE. Solo the Archdruid, which is the class ring, is also great for AoE. Impeccable Fail Essence can also be used in the AoE setup. So you have a lot of legendaries that you can choose from to do AoE damage. And with the latest changes for the balance druids that nerfed the Moonfire build, Radiant Moonlight has become really, really strong, and on 2 to 3 targets, Stellar Flare has become a really good talent to choose for balance druids. So Stellar Flare is a tier 75 talent. Stellar Flare is basically a dot, burns the target for damage and then additional damage over 24 seconds. So this talent has become really strong for 2 to 3 targets that are long-lived. And Solo the Archdruid and Radiant Moonlight legendary combo is really strong with that talent build. Now, the only fight that I've really seen balance druids really using this was Fellhounds. I mean, it can work on other fights and things like that, but it's... Boomkins are only really doing that for Fellhounds at the moment. So even though there has been like, you know, on 2-3 targets you should use something else, a lot of the Boomkins are still sticking with the default build because it's still really strong. They're still using Lady in the Child and things like that because it still works for Antorus. So even after these changes, not a lot of has changed. Not a lot of things have changed in terms of legendaries or talent builds. But in terms of like legendaries, like Radiant Moonlight has become really, really strong. So that's one of the big changes. But by saying this, what do I mean? What do I mean? Why do I include all these legendaries? Just because if you're a balanced druid, you should know that there is a lot of legendary combos that you should try out, that you should sim yourself, that you should have. So if you're just rolling for a Boomkin right now, or a balanced druid, rolling to a balanced druid, you should have at least some combo of those legendaries available, because legendaries do play a big part for your single target, for your AoE damage. In terms of rotation, balanced druids, if you're a new player to the game, if you're just like starting off playing World of Warcraft, balanced druids are probably one of the easiest range DPS specs to play. There are a few other ones that are probably easier, but balanced druid rotation is very simple. It's about just keeping Moonfire, Sunfire open, keeping your stat in AoE situations, keeping up your Starfall every time in order to keep your tier 21 buff available. And besides that, you'll be using your filler spells. You'll be using your Solar Rats. You'll be using your Lunar Strike. And on single target, you'll be weaving in Star Surges. That's about it. Like, of course, it gets a bit more complex based on empowerments, lunar empowerments and things like that, stellar empowerments, but it's a very, very easy rotation. It's one of those rotations I consider to be, you don't have to focus on your rotation, you can just pay attention to the mechanics, to the boss mechanics. So because the rotation is so easy, you get more time to look at the boss abilities when the boss abilities incoming, preparing, pooling and things like that. So as a new player, I consider balanced druid to be a very good spec, especially because for new players, movement and things like that is probably the biggest thing that affects their DPS. And for a lot of balanced druids out there, they will be using Stellar Drift, which is a tier 100 talent, for single target and AoE. If you look at Antorus logs, basically everyone's using Stellar Drift. And what Stellar Drift allows you to increase the Starfall radius by 30% and Starfall damage by 50%, and allows you to cast while moving within the Starfall's radius. So a lot of people will be casting Starfall either because of Honest Intuition proc. Honest Intuition, the legendary basic, can proc and on single target, and you'll be casting Starfall there. And you know, if you have to move, just cast your Solar Rat inside of Starfall and you won't lose any DPS due to movement. So it can be really strong on Mythic Plus, and it can be really strong in raids, and it makes balanced druids a very good spec for people who might not, you know, plan well, and because of the movement they might lose some of the cast. So it's quite new player friendly. and it makes it a bit more fun, you know, casting on the move. So let's look at Ferals now. Let's look at Ferals and how fun and how the rotation is looking. So Ferals are doing really well in terms of single target, amazing in terms of AoE. In terms of legendaries, there is really not that much choices that are available. Like first of all, Lufus, the legendary braces, have, like, you know, it's widely considered as one of the best AoE legendaries out there. In combination with this has happened recently. Chatoyan Signet, the legendary ring that has become a really good source for terms of even AoE and single target. You do need to sim yourself because Chatoyan's ring has become really good over Soul of the Archdruid. Soul of the Archdruid was for a long time considered as, like, you know, the combo of Lufus and Soul of the Archdruid was like the only combo. But over the time, over how gear scaling, Chatoyan rings has become better in a lot of the situations, and you need to sim yourself to find out which is the best combination. But Lufus, Chatoyan Signet, or Soul of the Archdruid is great for AoE. Like I said, sim yourself. For single target, it's the legendary helm, Behemoth's headdress, and either Soul of the Archdruid or Chatoyan Signet, based on your first tier talents, based on whether you're using Bloodsend or Lunar Inspiration. So there's a lot of simming that you have to do in order to maximize your, you know, the best single target talents and the best single target legendaries. But the point is, there's really only like 4 legendaries that you need to have, and you'll be set. You know, you'll be set for your AoE for your single target, and you won't have to worry that much about it, because there really isn't that many amazing legendaries for Feral Druids that are out there. So if you have, like, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 of those legendaries, you're kind of like, you know, you're there. You're kind of set, and if you're lucky enough to get those, it's really good. Now, in terms of the playstyle, in terms of rotation, a lot of things has changed for Feral Druids. Feral Druids have been made more forgiving. The rotation has been a little bit simplified by the talent choices that you choose. First of all, in terms of talents and in terms of fun, I find that the tier 45 talent, which is like, you know, Guardian Affinity, Restoration Affinity, Balance Affinity, is one of the most fun talents in the game, honestly. Balance Affinity basically increases your range by 5 yards, and for Feral Druids, it kind of makes you, like, you know, it almost makes it feel like a range DPS, just because if you spec into Balance Affinity and if you have Lufus, which increases the range and damage of your trash, you almost feel a bit like a range DPS, because your range is it's quite big, and you don't have to stand right next to the boss. If the boss has a big hitbox, you can stand 5 yards away away from him or her, and, like, I mean, it feels really cool. Balance Druids have Feral Druids have insane burst. You have things like, you know, you press Tiger's Fury, then you go into Brutal Slash and Trash, and that's going to be like insane burst. That's going to be insane burst. Within a couple of seconds, you can be doing like crazy, and I find that extremely really fun, especially on weeks where it's like tyrannical. Because on weeks where it's tyrannical, adds that don't live that long, you can just, like, you know, go Tiger's Fury, Brutal Slash, like, and then, like, Trash, depending on what legendaries you have and things like that. And the ads will be dead, and you'll be like, you know, 10 million, 5 million, 6 million DPS. It's really fun, and it requires very little preparation or very little rotational skill to actually pull that off. It changes a lot if you're doing like 45 weeks. If you're doing 45 weeks, you're going to start applying bleeds. So very similar to what Balance Druid does with their dots, you'll be applying bleeds. And Feral Druids, like Balance Druids, have 2 bleeds, or at least the 2 bleeds that they have to apply a lot of the times. You have your Rip and Rake, and you have to consider that applying things like Rip, which is your long bleed, on ads that are going to live long, you have to keep in mind that if the ad is below 25 or below 25% HP, applying your combo finisher like Ferocious Bite is going to refresh your Rip, so you don't have to over apply rips on ads that are going to live long. So your whole rotation changes way more if the ad is going to live for a long time. You'll be applying your bleeds, and the big part of applying your bleeds, and then you'll be applying, like, you know, your Brutal Slash, and then applying your Lufus or your Trash with Lufus, which also applies the bleed. But a big part of the whole Feral Druid rotation comes from not talents, or abilities like Tiger's Fury. Tiger's Fury is an ability that's going to increase your damage by 15% for 8 seconds. And this ability changes your whole rotation by quite a bit. Why? You get this 8-second window where you're going to be dealing 15% damage more. But the point is, snapshotting comes into effect. Snapshotting, basically what it means, your bleeds applied during this 8-second window are going to do 15% more damage. And because of that, your previously applied bleeds are going to be much weaker. So what it basically means, once you have Tiger's Fury up, you can refresh your bleeds or clip your bleeds. Like I mean, the general consensus is like, a rip that's less than 80%, has less than 80% duration. So we're talking like a rip that's 90, your rip that has 19 seconds left should be clipped by a rip that's applied within Tiger's Fury window. So what it means basically, most of the case scenarios, if I want to simplify it, you press Tiger's Fury and you reapply most of your bleeds, depending on if your target is below 25% HP. But you reapply most of your bleeds. You try and use your brutal slashes. You try and use as many trash abilities and things like that. So this window is basically like, press this and then like use everything you can within this window, because you're getting all of that DPS increase. And you can make this, and you can make the class more complicated, more bursty, or like more fun. Without Tiger's Fury ability, Feral Druids would be way more static. It'll be all about like, you know, just maintaining bleeds and just like, you know, just doing your filler abilities. Because of Tiger's Fury, it's way more proactive. It's way more like, okay, I gotta reapply my bleeds on all of the targets right now and things like that. So you can make it a lot more fun. Now, Ferals have different specs in, like, you know, different talent choices for single target and AoE. If you're not doing a lot of the raids, you won't really have to worry about it. If you're just doing Mythic plus scenarios, things like, you know, the first tier talent Predator is going to be like your best choice, and you're just going to be running with Predator most of the time. But like, you know, Lunar Inspiration is coming back for single target a lot of the times, and that's going to overcomplicate your rotation as well, because Moonfire is going to be part of your rotation. So there are a couple of talents and things that are going to can make your rotation harder, especially like a lot of people, if you're worried about rotation being too strong and things like blood talents, casting Regrowth or Untangling Roots causes your next 2 melee abilities to deal 20% increased damage to their full duration. Blood talents also affect snapshotting. So you'll be like, oh, do I really have to take in blood talents? And then again, I'm gonna have Tiger's Fury and blood talents is going to affect my snapshotting. You don't have to, because a lot of the Feral Druids will be going with Moment of Clarity, which is basically a very passive talent that you don't really have to worry that much about. And a lot of, like, I think most of the Antorus Feral Druids will be running with Moment of Clarity, but you do have to sim yourself. But it is going to make your rotation a bit more simpler. In terms of single target, you have a lot more cooldowns to look after than a balanced Druid. You have things like, you know, like a combo of like Tiger's Fury, your Incarnation, and then your Artifact ability can just give you a huge amount of single target burst. You'll be going into, like, you know, into stealth and applying Rake. That's going to be more powerful. If you have Shadow Meld, you'll be using Shadow Meld to apply Rake. That's more powerful. Like, there's a lot of little things to add more DPS to Feral Druid. But in terms of fun and viability, so this is going to be the summary of the video. In terms of fun and viability, Feral Druids are doing better in Antorus just because of how gear is scaling, just because of how quickly the ads are dying. Single target is a lot better for Feral Druids. Balanced Druid single target is quite poor and probably one of the lowest in the game right now. In terms of Mythic Plus and in terms of fun, in Mythic Plus, I actually enjoy playing my Feral Druid a lot on Tyrannical weeks, because I feel when the ads, like, first of all, a balanced Druid cannot compete with Feral Druid on Tyrannical weeks, because on Tyrannical weeks the ads are going to die very quickly. Feral Druid has amazing burst. Like I said, Tiger's Fury, Brutal Slash, Trash combo is just insane and very easy to use, and all those small ads are just going to die. Balanced Druid will, if the Balanced Druid does not pool their astral power, and by pooling I mean before they're going to do a big pull, a Balanced Druid should have, like, you know, try and get as much astral power and not use it on Star Surges or Starfalls, but wait until the next pull and then start using Starfall and applying dots. If the Balanced Druid doesn't do that on a Tyrannical week, Balanced Druid will be just spending their time using Solar Rat on like a 20 mob pull to get enough resources to apply Starfall, while a Feral Druid will be just annihilating. It will be just trashing, brutal slashing like there's no tomorrow. And you'll see the damage meter will be like Feral Druid like 5 million DPS and a Boomkin who's not pooling like 1 million or something like that. So there's a lot, it's a lot harder to be a Balanced Druid on Tyrannical weeks, considering when you compare it to Feral Druid, because Feral Druid will just annihilate it. And then on Tyrannical weeks, you know, the boss is gonna have more HP, and the Feral Druids are just better on single target. They have, like, they're just insane. They have more cooldowns, and they just do more DPS. But on fortified weeks, with the ads can live for a long time, the ads might be spread out. There's a lot of bosses out there where Starfall can be really good because ads are just so spread out. I find Balanced Druids to be really, really strong in those weeks, purely because it's so easy to play, especially if you use like Lady the Child Legendary, where you press one Moonfire and that Moonfire is applied again. So even on like a 10 mob pull, you can just press Moonfire 5 times, and everyone, or even less than that, and it'll be all applied. And then Sunfire applies the dust to everyone, and then you Starfall, and then you just relax in the background, not worrying about any other melee abilities and things like that, not worrying about having to apply bleeds on everyone, not worry about having to apply Ferocious Bite at 25% HP to reapply Rip again and things like that. It's just not, it's so easy on fortified weeks, and the ads are going to live really a long time. And a lot of the times you're like, I don't want to stress myself playing Feral on fortified, I don't want to apply bleeds, I don't want to go through all of that ordeal, I'm just gonna play a Boomkin. This is my personal opinion. And Feral Druids are going to do extremely well on the fortified weeks. In terms of fun, I think a lot of that is based on the Mythic plus weeks. Balanced Druids are the class that I play with. I don't want to get stressed too much. I want to stay in range. The ads have a lot of HP. I can just apply my dots. I can apply my Starfall and things like that, and I'm good. And like I mentioned, on Tyrannical weeks, there's nothing more fun than a Feral Druid just bursting through everything, using their incarnation on bosses, using their cooldowns on bosses, getting to that like 3-4 million, it's not uncommon, like 3-4 million burst single target damage at the start, and then, like, you know, slowly degrades. But it's just really fun to see those big numbers. It's really fun how the Feral Druid actually plays out. That's my personal opinion. In terms of viability, I mentioned before, Balanced Druid single target DPS is just not up to par. Feral Druids are doing a bit better in terms of like everything, but Balanced Druids are still extremely strong for those AoE situations, and, like, you know, where convenience is a factor, where ads are really spread out, nothing's really gonna beat out that Starfall with those awesome dots. But hopefully this video is not too long. Hopefully it shed some light on which spec is doing well, which maybe me going through the rotation made you realize that, oh, maybe I should try out Feral. Maybe those bleeds are going to be really awesome. I want to see those targets bleed, applying them to all the targets. I want to have a more complex rotation. Or you'd be like, okay, those bleeds feeling like it feels like it's a bit too much work, I'm just gonna stick to my Balanced Druid, or I like how balance is simple and things like that. Maybe you're going to feel like that. And hopefully this has helped you with your decision about which one's better. Thank you for watching this little guide, and I'll see you next time.